Okay, viewers, let's look at this politician's view. I think he's got it a bit more right than the Albanese government and the Governor General.
David, thank you for joining me. As I mentioned earlier, the Prime Minister announced a gun buyback scheme today in the wake of Bondi. Is that the answer? Do you support it?
Well, no, it's not the answer. This is a desperate diversion. I mean, he's announced the buyback when no state has actually announced any changes to any gun laws whatsoever. In fact, the New South Wales Premier hasn't even provided any legislation to the opposition in New South Wales. And in Queensland, the Premier here is in no hurry. In fact, he's saying that the sensible reform is the gun register, not about any changes to licences. Licences aren't the problem. It's the Islamic extremists in this country that have been allowed to permeate and allowed to set up in Australia.
So there you go. It's the Islamic jihadist extremism. Now, is that an attack on Muslims? Is that Islamophobia? No, it's not. It's revealing the manifestation of the ultimate Islamic cause, which is to manifest jihadism against those who do not agree with their beliefs. Now, this guy's just said it. Why can't the people that are running the country say it? Because they're partial to it. Their activism beliefs have caused cognitive dissonance in them being able to deal with the Islamic problem in Australia as leaders. Their activism has paralysed them, and now they're putting their activism before the best interests of the country. And this massacre, one of the biggest, well, the biggest massacre outside of Port Arthur, particularly towards specifically the Jewish community in Bondi, has revealed that supporting activism rather than the best interests of the country as a government doesn't work.
And that have been able to flourish for the last 2.5 years when the warning signs were there. And they started on the steps of the Sydney Opera House and they just escalated. And, you know, to hear Joel Fitzgibbon, I mean, that was one of the most weakest responses that I've heard. I know Joel, and I know he'd want to say they got it wrong. And you know what? It would take more courage and it would give more respect to the Prime Minister today if he just said sorry. They got it wrong. They let the ideology get in the road of tackling what has become a shift in our society that needs to be shifted back.
And when he says ideology, he means the government's ideology, their pro-Palestinian activism ideology that runs covertly as part of their beliefs, the Labor government's beliefs, has caused cognitive dissonance to an extent where it's allowing the Islamist jihadists in the country to be in some way persuaded that they'll get away with massacres and arsonists and all other sorts of destructive, death-related activities.
Need to look ourselves in the eye and say our society has denigrated to a point that we need serious leadership. And there is anger and there is frustration, not just in Bondi, but in Western Queensland. I've never seen the fear in the people that I represent's eyes, apart from the 9/11 events, than what I saw on Monday morning. And they feel helpless because they feel leaderless. And what they want is to be able to look to somebody and say, we want to do something. We want to pour our hearts out to these people, to the Jewish community and the people in Bondi. But there's no one to help us. We should be in Canberra now, all of us. We should be in Canberra now, passing legislation and saying to the Australian people, we will bring them together. We've looked ourselves in the eye, and the Prime Minister should say sorry, that he got it wrong, and we should get on with the job of saying to the Australian people, we will bring you together because we will keep you safe, and we will cut this cancer out of our society that has been allowed to fester because of what has been imported into this country and what is allowed to be spewed out of preachers from the pulpits across Sydney and Melbourne unabated. And the warning signs were there, and I don't know how this Prime Minister cannot stand up and say sorry. And for the Labor Party, please, just bring us together, for God's sakes.
Well, I agree. I mean, the Prime Minister today was asked about radical Islam, and he diverts to perversion of Islam and to guns, to blaming, you know, the far right. Even the sovereign citizens were brought up today. What does tackling radical Islam look like in your view?
Well, there's two parts of this, and one comes from the report that they're already sitting on and been sitting on for 6 months from Gillian Siegel, their special envoy. Recommendation 9 said that there needs to be greater scrutiny and screening of people that we bring into this country for not only anti-Semitism but also for extremist views. That could have been done already, but we should also, from those warning signs that we saw on the steps of the Sydney Opera House, we need to say to those people that want to use forums across our country to try and promote hate and promote violence, that there is a consequence. In society, you need a deterrent and consequence. And even Anthony Albanese and Burke said that these preachers have just gone underneath the law. They've always worked just around it. Will you change the law?
Well, they haven't. They've broken the law. When you're preaching jihadism, when you're encouraging jihadism, you've broken the law. That's a... No, these people should have been stopped 2 years ago.
When you see that things are changing on the streets of your cities and you lower the bar, and if they have dual citizenship, you send them to the country that they've got the other citizenship with, or if they don't have, you get them out of here as quick as you can. And those that are Australian citizens need to be isolated from society so they can't permeate that hate. They need to be isolated away so that there's a consequence and a deterrent. It's not rocket science. No, and when the warning signs were there for over 2 years, this is why people are angry. They're frustrated and they want to pour out love and hope, but they got no one to look up to because this Prime Minister has done 3/5 of bugger all.
Look, I agree with you, and the warnings have also been coming from Israel pretty strongly overnight. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke exclusively with my colleague Shari Markson. Here was his warning. Have a listen.
There was a battle raging in the world between the forces of modernity and moderation and the forces who want to take us back to the early Middle Ages. That's what these people are about. Now, they hate Israel. They hate Jews. Let me tell you, they also hate Australia. They burn our flag, but they'll burn your flag, and they'll burn you. So understand that they're against our common civilization.
Strong words there. What do you make of his intervention?
Well, he's spot on. And if you look at some of the people that marching across the bridges of Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane who have alternate lifestyles to many of those that they're walking for, I suspect that what they don't realise is that if their way of life takes over here, then their way of life is going to be seriously impinged. This is, I don't know what could have been a bigger wake-up call when a synagogue was firebombed, that this was a threat and that we were under attack in this country. But to culminate in Australians being slaughtered, Jewish Australians being targeted, that is just the biggest signal anyone can say that we are in a war against those that would do harm to our way of life. And if we are not vigilant, not only will we not be safe, but we will be handing over society to the next generation that has diminished. And we've been fortunate, and we are the current custodians of a society that was functional. But over the last 2.5 years, it's become dysfunctional, and it's our responsibility. And as legislators, I've been given the privileged position to go to Parliament and preserve that. And that's where I should be now. And that's where Anthony Albanese should be now, changing the way of this country so that we're handing over a society that isn't dysfunctional and we're facing up to the real threats that our country is facing. That's leadership, and that's what's missing.
Yeah, otherwise it's all talk, no action. And that's what we've seen for more than 2 years now. And that's the problem. Yeah. David Littleproud, appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much for your time.
No, well, I think it's fair to say that David Littleproud, the Nationals leader, he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. I'm out.